Let us get started. And as ever, I hand over first to the SMMT's Chief Executive, who you all know, Mike Hawes.
Thank you, Justin. And yes, there was one year when we didn't use Justin, but as you all know, you learn more from your mistakes than your successes. Anyway, good morning, everyone, and welcome to SMMT's Automotive Summit for 2026. And as we are rightly seeing nightly on our TV screens, a long-awaited competition has started, and the early rounds have been compelling. Some famous names have already gone out, but will the final be totally one-sided? But enough for the party leadership. The World Cup's also getting pretty tasty too. And despite this festival of sport, however, we need today to focus on our industry, because the success of our UK industry is vital to the success of the UK economy. Now, government can debate what it spends on welfare or warfare, but it is industry that creates the wealth in the first place. And our summit, as Justin said, always seems to occur at politically interesting times. At the height of terror threats last year, during a general election 2 years ago, just after the Brexit referendum a decade ago. And prime ministers, it seems, are always there to be changed. So here we are again. But whilst government may pause, industry cannot. No half times, no spurious hydration breaks. No downtime. We are always on somewhere around the world and have to compete around the world. One man who gets that is our business secretary, Peter Carl, and I would like to express our gratitude for his help and recognize his rare quality of being a politician who doesn't just speak, but also listens. He'll be here later this morning, I should say, doing just that. Now, he and his team are responsible for the delivery of the modern industrial strategy, which celebrates its own anniversary this month. Together with the trade strategy, it is essential for our industry. We argued for it, we helped design it, and we welcomed it. But now we must look at the reality. We published today our latest Automotive State of the Nation report, and it shows good progress. £4 billion committed to Drive 35 funding. A British industrial competitiveness scheme designed for the automotive sector. Trade deals with the US, with India, with the GCC, grants to support EV take-up, and self-driving vehicles being rolled out. Now, put that together, that is the envy of many other sectors. But as our report also shows, it points to some areas that still need fixing. Sky-high energy costs, business costs that make it harder to employ people, new levies coming on EVs, which we are mandated to sell. And so the industrial strategy must align all government policies to deliver growth, to attract investment. Unfortunately, the ZEV mandate as it currently stands does the exact opposite. Now, let me be clear, this industry is totally committed to decarbonisation. EVs are the future. The issue is how quickly we get there. We as an industry are spending billions creating the zero-emission vehicles. We created them before any targets were set. We committed billions more to make them, but now we are having to spend billions to subsidise a market shift that just isn't shifting because natural demand is just not sufficient. EV market share so far this year is a tad under 24%. Independent reports suggest that natural demand is about half that. Next year, however, the target is 38%, and in 2028, it's 52%. Vans, meanwhile, are only at about 9.5% when we have to hit 34% next year and 46% the year after. No one in this industry thinks it can be done. The Committee on Climate Change, however, knows better. Its seventh carbon budget assumes that car and van market share for BEVs will be 95% in 2030. But the Committee on Climate Change remit does not extend to industrial consequences, to the impact on local production, on jobs and communities. If we all have to buy EVs from abroad, so be it. The UK will meet its climate goals. But the consequences, the cost, will be the domestic industry, and that will be collateral damage. Governments, however, have to care about such consequences. The ZEV mandate is already costing jobs, profitability, and is creating significant risk to UK investment. So it needs to be reviewed. It needs to be reviewed urgently, not abandoned, but amended to reflect the reality I've described. Amended so that we don't have to spend $5 billion a year incentivizing sales, money that ought to be going to new products and jobs. Amended so we can have a healthy market with the EV volumes that charge point companies crave. Amended that we can attract investment and support a supply chain that is in peril. Changing the mandate is not about changing the direction, it's about getting to your destination realistically. It is about putting the UK back on the agenda of global investors and doing so now. So there is no time to lose. But if we are to produce more electric vehicles here, the industry must also address, the industrial strategy, I should say, must address the cost of energy, because we need to produce them here, and the cost of that energy is sky high. The British Industrial Competitiveness Scheme aims to cut industry costs by 25%. Very welcome and a critical first step, one we've called for, but a 25% cut still leaves our energy costs 60% above the EU average. So we need more fundamental reform of energy markets to compete. And again, we need it urgently. So industrial strategy, climate strategy, energy strategy, all aligned for growth. And on our trade strategy, get the rules right, and we can increase our £110 billion worth of trade and grow UK exports. When we met this time last year, we were focused on the US, getting that deal to safeguard our small volume, high value manufacturers. This year, there's a trade threat closer to home, ironically with the EU, our biggest and closest partner. The post-Brexit TCA deal, the Brexit deal, sought to safeguard the automotive industry, and largely it succeeded, despite the costs, complexities, and challenges that we still face. But it also contained within it rules of origin criteria that get tougher. The EU, for example, the EU using its own trade policy to support its own industrial policy. Electrification and localized battery manufacturers in Europe have not gone as quickly as they had anticipated. So those tougher rules of origin now threaten a 10% tariff on 70% of the UK-EU trade. The tariff cost, £1.4 billion. £1.4 billion that should be used to reduce costs, not increase prices. So we need to find a joint solution. Again, we need to find it quickly, or we cede the field. And our negotiations with the EU must go deeper than that. The European Commission's Made in Europe proposals, as currently drafted, effectively shut out UK-assembled vehicles from most of the European market. And that risks becoming one of the most spectacular own goals in history. Because if Britain is written out of the Made in Europe, this is a problem not just for the UK producers, it is a direct threat to European industry. That's because we're totally integrated in the European industry. We are the EU's biggest car and new parts market, as they are ours. Since 2019, the combined value of EV and PHEV trade with the EU alone has grown from around 2.3 billion to 16.4 billion. So damage us, and the EU damages itself. This is not special pleading, it is common cause. Resolving this must be an aim of the next UK-EU summit. And if the date of the summit has slipped, the urgency has not. Our industry has no time to lose. We know the current Prime Minister gets this. The next must act on it quickly. Our ability to grow and to grow the UK economy remains immense, and our role in achieving net zero is undoubtable. But to do so, we need to overcome some unnecessary barriers. Full inclusion of UK auto and Made in Europe, a solution on rules of origin, a review of the ZE mandate that is not a dilution, but a reality check and makes the end goal attainable. Align industrial, net zero, energy, trade, and fiscal strategies in the pursuit of growth. We need to be ahead of the game, not chasing it. So if we are in a season of winners and losers on the football field and potentially politically, the UK automotive sector, however, is a perennial that must last more than one season. And maybe, if that is the case, 10 years of hurt will come to an end. Thank you very much.